Hello, children. Today we are going to learn lesson number 18 from your Sunday school book. The name of the chapter is Zedekiah. The meaning of Zedekiah is God is righteous. Now, Zedekiah was Judah's last king. The memory verse of this chapter is Revelation 3, verse 15 to 19. I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say I am rich, I have acquired wealth, and do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in fire, so that you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes so you can see. Those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline, so be earnest and repent. Children, please by heart this memory verse, and also go through the portion to read. You will get more in-depth knowledge about this lesson. Now, in the last chapter, we learnt about Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Upon Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam succeeds him as king. However, 10 tribes of Israel refused to accept him as king. The northern kingdom of Israel goes under the rule of Jeroboam, while Rehoboam continues to reign over the much smaller southern kingdom of Judah. Now, after Jeroboam's reign, 18 kings ruled Israel. And during the time of Hosea, the last king, an Assyrian king invaded Israel, and people were deported to Assyria, and the Assyrians ruled in Israel. Now, similarly, in the kingdom of Judah, Rehoboam was followed by 20 kings. And during the reign of the last king Zedekiah, the people of Judah were taken captives by the Babylonians. The city and the temple were ruined and completely destroyed. This happened because of King Zedekiah's double-mindedness. He really had no firm beliefs as to what was acceptable to God and what was not acceptable. He knew what was right, but he also knew that if he advocated righteousness, then somebody would definitely get upset in his kingdom. So maybe he decided to keep silent and try to please everyone instead of pleasing God. Now, God used to send prophets to correct the kings, and to admonish Zedekiah, God sent the most prominent prophet, Jeremiah. But he didn't give any heed to the prophecy of God because he was double-minded. Moving ahead, we will learn about the great downfall of a king who disobeyed God and rejected his counsel. Zedekiah's early days. Now, Zedekiah was also known as Mattaniah. His father was Josiah and mother was Hamutal. Josiah was a good king who ruled Judah. The Bible describes Josiah as a righteous king, a king who walked in all the way of David his father and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. That's what Bible says about his father Josiah. Now, Josiah restored true worship in the temple of God, which resulted in a great revival in Judah. But after the death of Josiah, his son Jehoahaz became king. Jehoahaz means God will uphold. What a beautiful meaning. But he was a bad person and he rebelled against God. So he was defeated by the Egyptians and he was taken captive to Egypt. After the reign of Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim became the king. Now, Jehoiakim means God will lift up. He was also an evil man. So God gave him over to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and he was looted, and he took away, the king of Babylon took away all the vessels in the temple of God, and many Jews were taken captive to Babylon. So after the reign of Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin became the king. Jehoiachin means God gives strength. He was also an evil man, and he chose to disobey God. So he was also taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar. And at last, thus Zedekiah, the youngest son of Josiah, was appointed king by Nebuchadnezzar. How did Zedekiah become the king of Judah? Now Zedekiah was 21 years old when he ascended the shaky throne of Judah. He was put on the throne by the grace of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, whose power extended over Judah and all neighboring countries. King Zedekiah broke his oath of loyalty to the king of Babylon. Ignoring Jeremiah's warnings, he secretly entered into an alliance with the king of Egypt to throw off the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar. In the 9th year of his reign, Zedekiah declared an open revolt against the Babylonians. Most of the Jews were in exile in Babylon, and the rest who were in Judah, they were very unfaithful to God. Zedekiah did evil in the sight of God. Now, having learned nothing from the judgments which had befallen on his brothers, Zedekiah indulged himself in their evil ways. At first, he seemed to have been willing to obey the words of Jeremiah and submit to the Babylonians. However, this attitude did not last. For 9 years, Zedekiah did not humble himself. He was stiff-necked. He hardened his heart. The priests and the people populated the house of Lord, mocked the messengers of God, misused his prophets until divine patience finally ran out and there was no remedy. Now Zedekiah ignored the warnings of Jeremiah and he made a military alliance with the Egyptians instead, in the hopes of escaping from Nebuchadnezzar. As he had been duly warned by Jeremiah, salvation did not come from Egyptians. Zedekiah also made a vow to God that he will release all the prisoners. But immediately after their release, they were recaptured and made slaves again. Thus, he was a liar before God and men. Zedekiah's end. Now Zedekiah refused admonishing from God, and thus he prepared himself for judgment. After 11 years of reign, the Babylonians came against him, but he resisted for 18 months. But he had to surrender in BC 587 due to the great famine in the land. He tried to flee from the Babylonians, but they pursued him and caught him in the plain of Jericho. And they brought him in the midst of kings of Babylon. They brought him to the king of Babylon. Then they killed all the sons before his eyes. He made him blind. They made him blind, and they took him to Babylon. He lived there till his death. So Zedekiah was destroyed because he did not follow God with all his heart. The city and the temple were all destroyed and burned. A lot of Jews were taken as captives. And thus the great kingdom of David and Solomon came to an end. Children, what do we learn from this chapter? We learn that he who is double-minded is unstable in all his ways. God doesn't like such people. So if we hear the word and if we don't obey it, then we deserve to be punished. And if one doesn't follow God in his good days, God will abandon him in the days of trouble. So we learn that we should never be stiff-necked, but we should always be obedient to God. We should listen to God and His ways. Thus, I conclude this chapter. Please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. I will see you with a new chapter in the coming week. Thank you, children. Take care and be safe and be at home.